9th of March 2025. So we're going to Antardvipa today. And Antardvipa is like the center of the whorl, the lotus of Goradam, of Goradam. So I'm going to read some parts from this Navadvip Bhav Taranga, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he speaks very beautifully about this Antardvipa. So I'll read some of that. We'll have a kirtan first, and then we'll begin our meditation on Antardvipa today. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Aradhikaya Priyatmane Shri Shri Mad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Nishatadine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Gaura Prasthaya Bhutale Shri Shri Mad Bhakti Pragyana Desha Viti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, louder. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai. Oh, Nitai He, Nitai He, Nitai He, Nitai He. Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari, Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai Shri Shri Guru Garanga Ganhabhaya Giridhari Radha Govinda Ju Ki Jai Nityananda Rai Ki Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotaras Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotaras Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotaras Shishimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotaras Shishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Baladevi Dibhushan Gaudi Vedantacharya Ki Jai. Jai Rasik Sirumani Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shivata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Patadasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. Arupanuga Guru Variga Ki Jai. Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsati Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Gauda Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Om Aginatimirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Priya Swarupe, Daita Swarupe, Hajvi Rupe, Nijan Rupe, Prabhuveka Rupe, Tana Rupe, Swabila Swarupe, Anapita Chirim Chirat Kurunavaratino Kala, Samadapaitam unnata ujjala rasam svabhakti shriyam Hari purata sundaratu tikatamba satipita Sada hridare kandare swadatu vasachinandanaha Yam pravajantamanapetyamapeti krityam dvaipaino viraha katara ajuhava Putre titam mayatayottara vinidustam sarvabhutam hridim munimanatoshmi Bhaktiya vihina aparada lakshay Shiptascha karmadi taranga madhye Kripamayi tvam sharanam prapadam Prinde namaste charanarindam Bhajami radham aravinda netram Smarami radham madhurashmitasyam Vadami radham karuna madram Tato mamanasti katyana kapi Iti vignaya radhe tvam evam char. And first of all, offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurudev. Lila Pravishta Om Astotara Shishimad Shila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotara Shishimad Shila Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada. And all our divine Rupanuga Varga and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhuvevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, Antardvipa is where we're heading, and if we've taken our residence across the Ganga, then we will all have to crowd into so many boats to carry across there. So that's quite an amazing feat every year when sometimes our Navadvip Parikrama has as many as 15,000 people. So all crossing at one time across Mother Ganga is quite an extraordinary affair, but very wonderful and exhilarating. And singing different bhajans, of course, on the way. But today, I'm personally not in Navadvip, in Radhakund. So I'm feeling some separation from Navadvip Dham. But I'd like to begin to read some verses from this Navadvip Bhav Taranga by the visionary who located all the different areas of the Dham, the holy Dham. Previous to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, these places were practically not known. Mother Ganga flooded the whole area after Mahaprabhu left. And for something like 200-300 years, the whole place was all shifted around. So to get a position on all the different holy places, Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed very deeply for this vision. And it was granted to him by Nityananda Prabhu, the Sandini Shakti. So I'm going to read from verse 1, which begins describing Antardvipa, where we're going today. So, which is the crest jewel of all holy abodes? Which is the sporting ground of the Sandini potency? Yesterday we spoke about Nityananda being the Ishtadeva of that Sandini potency. He's the one whose everything is manifesting from him. Everything in existence comes from Nityananda Prabhu. So taking his shelter first, as we did yesterday, then we can get the mercy of Nityananda to enter the holy Dham. So, ground of the Sandini potency, which measures 16 krosha in circumference and is manifested in 9 islands, where the Chit and Ananda potencies reside. That's the Sangvit, Hladini Shaktis reside. Everything resides in that Gaur Mandal. When we see the flower of the lotus of Gaur Mandal, and we see Antardvipa in the center of the whorl of the lotus, which is the sanctuary of all holy places, demigods, sages, and scriptures. This is the very essence, Antardvipa, where we're going today. Antar means inner, and it has its name derived from when Lord Brahma, he was feeling very humbled when he had stolen the cows and calves, the calves and cowherd boys from Krishna. And he came to Navadvip, and he was praying in Antardvipa for mercy. And in that prayer, Mahaprabhu ultimately appears after many thousands of years of austerity by Lord Brahma and answers Lord Brahma's desire, which is to take birth in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes as a humble Yavana, as Haridas Thakur, who would become the Nam Acharya, chanting 3 lakh Nam a day, which is the basic fuel for our entering into Braj, as we explained yesterday. When this Nam Bhajan is secure, secure means for many years we've chanted a respectable time, at least, with Nam. Then it becomes so fixed in our lives, and the potency of Nam is going to carry us into an understanding and appreciation of these holy places and their leelas, etc., and the sportive, beautiful activities that Mahaprabhu would perform. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, may the Dham of Sri Navadvip become visible to my eyes. He's praying for this focus, this to see the real Navadvip. What do we see when we come? As we become more familiar with the various pastimes, etc., in Navadvip, we become more familiar with, or we become closer to the actual aprakat, or the reality of what is Navadvip Dham. As we have more familiarity with Shastras, with what are the holy places, what is Godrum, for example, what is Antardvipa, which we're talking about today, what is Ritudvip, what is Koladvip, what is Madhyadvip, what is Modrundvip, all these different places. As we become more familiar with them, then we can see them more clearly. Just like the more times you come to Radhakund, the more familiar you are with the glories of Radhakund, then the closer you see her. Every single day it changes. Every single day as our devotion increases, it must be progressing to be even called devotion. Devotion is only something that is progressive. If it's not progressing, then we haven't captured that current yet. So we can go to Bandiravan 1,000 times, and every single time it's different. Every single time it's like, wow, I never knew this was there. I never knew this was there. If we're open to appreciating the time continuum, moving forward, always progress. Love itself is what the Dham is made of. It's where Krishna and Mahaprabhu had their sporting pastimes. The nature of the spiritual world is only made of love. And love itself has to be dynamic, to be a reality. It has to be moving. If it's static, it's not really love. It's something else. It's mundane. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying, may the Dham of Sri Navadvip become visible to my eyes. Today it will be visible to his eyes in a certain way, and tomorrow that vision will have increased. This is the nature of spiritual life. The more charge we're experiencing from our practices, then the more revelation we're going to be benedicted with. Every day when you dress Radha Govinda, they're not the same every day. Every day they will be fresher. Naveen Krishna, ever fresh. Krishna's ever fresh. May my eyes behold the 16 krosha of Vrindavan within the circle of Mathura Mandal as identical to Navadvip within the circle of Golden Mandal. We touched on this a little yesterday. We didn't get extensively into it, but we started to appreciate the complementary nature between Vrindavan and Navadvip. They are the same. There is some speciality in each, but in principle, because Krishna has his pastimes in both. And it's the apricot world, ultimately, but it's come into this Boma Vrindavan, or Boma Gauralila. It's come here as identical. These dhams are but two manifestations of one principle that is infinitely beginningless and purely spiritual. This is the reality of the Dharma. It's infinite. and absolutely purely spiritual. There's no mundanity in it, except what comes into our minds. Our material consciousness will create some mundanity for our vision, but the actuality, it's not material whatsoever. So this should give us great enthusiasm to pray for a vision of these holy dhams in their reality. And which, only for reasons of differing pastimes of the Lord, has taken the form of two immaculate abodes. One abode, Lila Purushottam. Krishna is engaged entirely in tasting his Leelas. And in the other abode, Krishna is entirely absorbed in experiencing the Leela of the Ashraya, of Sri Radhika, of her moods. This is the distinction. They're both the same Krishna, but Gauradham has a speciality. Gauradham is Prem Dham. Mahaprabhu is tasting Prem. Krishna is performing Leelas in Vrindavan. So many Leelas. And Gauradham is where Krishna himself is tasting the speciality of those Leelas through Sri Radhika. Because Sri Radhika, she is getting a higher taste for those Leelas than Krishna is. This is what we've been explaining for a long time. So to understand that bliss of Sri Radha is manifesting in Prem Dham, Gauradham, through Mahaprabhu's activities. You understand some difference? These are Vaishishtya, specialities of the Dhams. Then he says, by Krishna's inconceivable potency, Achintya Shakti, which is infinite and spiritual, the Lord has brought these two Dhams into the material world in order to liberate the living entities dwelling there. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusyam deha ashridata bhajate tat rishi kritva yashrudva tat parobhavet. Krishna is manifesting these pastimes to inspire the humans, living entities, to be attracted to the spiritual world, to come home, to come back to our abode. These pastimes will attract us out of this material world. We're so attracted to this material world at the moment, right? Oh, this is my house, this is my car, this is my bike, whatever. You know, our various things that we have acquired. This is my house, this is my guest house, my all the time. This is the perversion of the material world. Everything, I am at the center. This is material. Spiritual, Krishna is at the center. So, but by residing in these holy dhams, because the weight of potency in the holy dhams is strong enough to pull our minds out of the mundanity. It's this weight of sweetness and speciality that we hear about the pastimes in Madhurya, mood of sweetness. In Aishwarya, that weight is not the same. I was just sharing with my friend here that in South India, the weight of Aishwarya is very strong, but the sweetness is not really flowing. People generally are quite shy. They're quite reserved. They haven't sort of kicked out of their mental states. It's different. It's very pucker and clean and beautiful, but it doesn't have the zest or that sweetness that Braj has or Gauradham have. So how can we remember Gauradham and Vrindavan Dham as being the same when we're living here all the time in Vrindavan, in Radhakund, and then to realize that this is also Gauradham simultaneously. Everywhere in Radhakund there are so many murtis of Sachinandan Gaura Hari. You know the Jagannath Mandir here on the Parikrama path? And then just in front of there, in one Babaji's house, is a beautiful six-armed form of Sachinandan. Very beautiful. Sadbhuj. Oh,
Shadbhuj Gauranga.
Sadbhuj Garanga. Yes, so beautiful. So he's everywhere here. Because the Bengalis brought him here. All the Goswamis, they're all Bengalis. They all brought Mahaprabhu with them. So he's here, very much alive. By the power of the mercy of this Sri Krishna, may the souls bound in matter someday see these abodes of Vrindavan and Navadvip. That's what we're saying. We're bound in matter through our attachments. It's this attachment that is binding us. So we are praying to become detached, ultimately even from our bodies. Abhyasena tukuntaya vairagya, by practice and renunciation. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, practicing and renouncing this material world, because it's binding, it's too binding. The pleasant ocean, the pleasant parks, the pleasant, all pleasant, 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 pleasant. Attracting, putting down strings into my consciousness to keep me here, bound in the material world. Our objective is to liberate ourselves from the material world. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Sochati Nakanchati. Krishna is saying again in Bhagavad Gita. All these truths are spoken in Bhagavad Gita, and they're all applicable to the vision of the holy dhams. So we're trying to appreciate today, specifically, Antardvipa. I don't want to get too distracted away, but we've crossed the boat, we've crossed the Ganga, and we're now walking in Antardvipa. And I've described a little bit about Lord Brahma. It's called Antardvipa because it was Lord Brahma's inner vision that manifested when Mahaprabhu came and gave him that benediction. And then we're going to walk up through, past all the different temples, all the way through. So many different temples we'll discuss in a moment. Only by acquiring proper qualifications can all the senses of the living entities taste the spiritually variegated nectar of these holy dhams. This is our sadhan bhajan, to control the senses. Very hard, but it's as I've just said in Bhagavad Gita, abhyasena takuntaya, by practice and renunciation, our senses will become controlled, where we can start to appreciate the immense speciality of this holy dham. It's Chintamani. It's completely transcendental, apricot. This Radhakund where we're dwelling now, we can tangibly feel the distinction. Even a mundane person, when he comes from Vrindavan and we come to Govardhan, there's a heightened increase in our consciousnesses. And when we come from Govardhan to Radhakund, again it's increased. So this is showing us this divine nature of this place. Since unqualified material senses are incapable of tasting this sweet nectar, those so unfortunately endowed scornfully deride these places again and again as being insignificant locations made only of dull matter. So the envious will always be trying to minimize these holy places. The basis of qualification is the mercy of Krishna himself and the mercy of his devotees, of his pure devotees. They will give us the qualification. Sadhu Sangha, Shadava Shastra Hoy. This Sadhu Sangha is the foundation. And when we perform our Brajamandal Prikrama, we follow the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, which is about Jiva Goswami associating with Nityananda. And so many other saints and sadhus are in that party. They're all associating with each other. They're generating the enthusiasm to perceive the real nature of the Dham. The real nature of the Dham is so joyful and so blissful for the heart. And the sound vibrations of the kirtan as we perform the parikrama are so powerful in the consciousness. They'll transport us. They'll give us sufficient sanskar to carry on with our various material activities. We have to perform our various material activities. We can't escape them. We're in material bodies. We're not walking around in our subtle bodies. We have our material bodies and they have to be attended to, the various activities, etc. But we can begin to minimize that in the direction of contemplation and meditation, more and more and more in the day. Less and less of the material. The basis of qualification is the mercy of Krishna himself and the mercy of his devotees. Out of compassion for all the living entities, the sadhus bestow this transcendental qualification unto other devotees by their own association. We must always be seeking sadhu sangha. One cannot attain this by following the path of gyan, karma, yoga, or etc. Only by means of shraddha, devotional faith, while strictly keeping the association of saintly devotees of the Lord, can one be victorious over matter. So this is just a little introduction by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Now there's a description here in my Gurudev's Navadvip Parikrama book of when Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw this holy dham, and he saw the vision of the Yog Pit. And we should appreciate this as the focal point of Antardvipa is the Yog Pit. Without the Yog Pit being established, the followers of Mahaprabhu would not be able to celebrate properly, just like the Muslims have Mecca, the Christians have Jerusalem or Bethlehem. Every cult group has the birthplace of that avatar, etc. Krishna has Mathura and Vrindavan, Gokul. So Gokul and Mathura are both in Antardvipa. They're both there where we are today. They're both there. But the Yog Pit is what is brilliantly shining, because this, even when you go to the Yog Pit today and you offer dandavats, you can, even a poor-minded person can sense the potency that emanates from that ground. If you're offering obeisances in front of the Panchatattva there at the Yog Pit, the potency that comes from the ground is tangible. Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Lord of all lords, took his birth there. It's like a magnetic pull. It's like you can touch it practically. When you're offering it's very, very strong, because this is the birth site of this most munificent avatar, the golden avatar. I don't think his munificence is sufficiently broadcast enough even, because it's only been 500 years. Krishna has 5,000 years. Everywhere is very glorious, but Mahaprabhu, being covered avatar, has a different twist to it, has a different mood to it. He's giving us an internal path. As we said yesterday, this Raganuga, it's an internal path. Vaidhi Bhakti is the external path, right? So we want to connect with that internal current through our sadhana bhajan. So now, this is a description of when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was staying at one dharmshala, the Rani Dharmshala, standing on the roof. This is a description of when he sees, first of all, the effulgence of the Yog Pit. It's saying one day after twilight, so there was no other light, there was no electric lights in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time. After twilight, at 10 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night would have no practically illumination in the 300 years, 200 years, 250 years before for Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Kamala and I, Kamala, this is Lalita Prasad, or is this Bimala Prasad? Bimala, yes. This is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And I, together with one clerk, were standing on the roof of the Rani Dharmshala looking about. This Rani Dharmshala is in Navadvip.
Yes.
It's,
on the side of Ganga.
yes, they try to say in Swananda Sukada Kunj, there's a little balcony in the front,
And they tried to say, well, this was the place where Bhaktivinoda Thakur looked out. Because you can always get some more paisa if you say like that. But it's actually not. No. You thought it was. Yeah, no, no. They always say that. Every temple will try to say this is the authentic place, but that's not where he lived. Swananda Sukata Kunj is like his office. He lived at Surabhi Kunj. That's where he lived for like 10 years with his family. But he had that property that was secured ultimately by Bhakti Pariyan Keshav Maharaj for Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And it has a little balcony outside the room. And they like to say that's where he actually saw. But here is saying the Rani Dharmshala. It's in Navadvip. It's actually, I think, where Gokishore Das Babaji used to stay also sometimes. Gokishore Das Babaji would stay in one place there. Looking about, it was very dark. The sky was filled with clouds even, so not even moonlight coming through. Then across the Ganga, towards the north, we have our bearings, Ganga flows towards the south. So the way Ganga is coming from, she's coming from the north. So that is north. Then on the east side is the Yog Pit, on the west side is the Jamuna flowing, right? You have the bearings there. Then across the Ganga towards the north, I saw an effulgent mansion. I asked Kamal, did you see something? He answered, I became awestruck to see an effulgent mansion on the other side of the Ganga towards the north. That's in the direction of Mayapur. This is what they're seeing in their vision. In the morning, I again went to the roof of the Rani Dharmshala and attentively looked towards that place. I was unable to see the effulgent mansion, but I could see a palm tree there. When I inquired from others about that place, they said it was called Balal Digi. This is actually at Pritukund, close to Pritukund. Pritukund is there. Balal Digi. And that one can see many traces of King Lakshman Sen's old fort there. When Prithu Maharaj was leveling the ground, he saw an effulgent light at this place. And he desisted from doing any more work there. Then later on, Lakshman Sen came and developed a beautiful kund there. And then later on, we call it Prithu Kund, actually. And that one can see many traces of King Lakshman Sen's old fort there. The coming Monday, I went to Krishna Nagar, and the following Sunday, I went straight from there to Balal Digi. Is that how you say it? Balal Digi?
Yeah, Balal Digi.
Balal Digi.
Chaitanya.
Balal Digi. Chaitanya. That night, I beheld a wondrous sight. Sriman Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Advaitacharya, Sri Gadadhar, and the other devotees were completely absorbed in chanting and dancing ecstatically. He had that vision. Everyone's eyes was filled with tears. The tremendous sound of Hari Bol and the sound of mridanga and kartals maddened the devotees. After some time, that sight disappeared from my eyes. The next day, I walked to those places to take darshan of them and asked the elderly locals about them. They told me that this was Sriman Mahaprabhu's birthplace. So he's discovered this. It's been... Because prior to this, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was looking at many old maps, trying to discern where is the Yog Pit. Because many were saying the Yog Pit was on the eastern bank. Is that right? No, western bank. Western bank. Where it's... No, it's not. It's on the eastern bank. I visited all the small villages mentioned in Bhakti Ratnakara, as well as those mentioned in Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur's Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. Therefore, thereafter, I sat in Krishna Nagar and compiled the book Sri Navadvip Dham Mahatmya and sent it to be printed in Calcutta. Then he's describing about this place, and finally, he's describing my specs here. There was a great festival performed at Sri Gaudramdvip at Surabhi Kunj. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was there in 1893.
performed a great Harinam Sankirtan festival under the direction of Jagannath Das Babaji. At that time, Sri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj went with many Vaishnavas to take darshan of Sri Mayapur. Overwhelmed by ecstatic sentiments, he himself pointed out Mahaprabhu's birthplace, the lost Yogpit Mayapur. The 144-year-old Babaji Maharaj became overwhelmed with ecstasy and jumped into the air, crying out, "This is the birthplace of Gaurachandra, the very life and soul." Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, many famous writers of Bengal, mainly highly posted government officers, etc., they witnessed this event. So this was the discovery of the Yogpit, which I wanted just to mention right at the beginning of our walking into Antardvipa today. So there are so many locations. We're not going to go through them all. We just haven't got the time. But at least we can catch something of the flavor and speciality of this Antardvipa, and the speciality in particular of the Yogpit. Because when they were actually excavating the Yogpit, they discovered the Korma deity, is that correct? Of Jagannath Das Babaji. Yes, I think that's correct. Or is it the Shingadev temple? Korma deity. Underneath Jagannath Das Babaji's place. Jagannath Mishra's place, not Jagannath Mishra's place. They excavated one deity to confirm this is actually the Yogpit. Then that property was secured, and the Yogpit, Bhaktivinoda Thakur began to build that Yogpit. And close by is the Chaitanya Mat, just north of there, short distance. And almost next door is Srivasangam, very, very close. So we're going to go to these places now. So as I described before, when we walk up the path from the gut, there are so many different mandirs along the way, all glorifying our previous acharyas, particularly Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, because after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left this world, there was big problem amongst the mutts, but many of those senior devotees, because of that, they left their mutts, like Bhakti Vedanta Keshav Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshakshira Maharaj, and they all manifested their own temples and places along this road here. So there's the Gopinath Gaudiya Mutt, who today is Srila Budayan Maharaj, Srila Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj manifested that mutt. Then the Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mutt of Sri Kamala Madhusudan Maharaj, the Chaitanya Bhagavat Mutt of Srimad Bhakti Vichar Vyavara Maharaj, and the Chaitanya Gaudiya Mutt of Srila Bhakti Dvaita Madhav Maharaj and Srila Bhakti Balatirtha Maharaj. All of these mutts are there. And sometimes we go into the mutts as we walk through, and sometimes we just keep walking. And then there's the Gaura Nityananda Mandir, Sri Nanda Acharya Bhavan at Sri Isodhyan. And this was, the founder is Bhakti Sarang Goswami Maharaj. Then there's the Chaitanya Chandradoy Mandir. The founder is Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and the ISKCON place there. And then the Sri Chaitanya Mission of Srila Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj. And then we come to the Yogpit. And it's after the Yogpit that we come to Srivasangam. But in the Yogpit, the birthplace of Mahaprabhu, we remember all his childhood pastimes. When Mahaprabhu took his birth on that Falgun night in 1486, on the full moon night, and all the residents, Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur, etc., were all chanting loudly Harinam, and they were all wondering, or Advaita was wondering, something very auspicious must have happened. Why is everyone chanting like this so beautifully? And why are we filled with so much joy? And this is because of the advent of Sachinandan Gaurahari at this place, this Yogpit. So there are many pastimes, childhood pastimes here, that we can just consider for a moment. When Mahaprabhu would cry as a very young baby, all the mothers would come and chant Harinam loudly, and Mahaprabhu would immediately stop. Immediately he inaugurated his Sankirtan mission at his very birth, making everyone chant. They all realized that, oh, when he's crying, then we have to chant. So he would constantly be crying, so they would be constantly chanting. So he would keep that sound vibration strong from his very birth. And then one time there was a snake coming into the courtyard, and baby young Nimai, we said yesterday how Nimai was named Nimai to protect him from any witches or ghosts, etc., because Mother Sachi had already lost 9 girls, had already been taken from her. So in order to protect him, they called him Nimai. So young Nimai, he comes in the courtyard, and there's this cobra in the courtyard, and young Nimai, he lies down on the snake, and he's lying down on the coils of the snake. How can they tolerate that? The mothers came out, rah, screaming, shouting. And then, of course, the snake understood, you know, better I move now. But Nimai, he didn't want the snake to go. He was trying to keep the snake there. But the snake left. But this is a beautiful pastime, all demonstrating the potency of this golden avatar that manifested. And then the pastime of the thieves, who thought, because Nimai was dressed in beautiful gold ornaments, etc., that his parents and many of the relatives had put on him. And the thieves were thinking, oh, we can take this baby and take all these jewels and ornaments, etc., the ankle bells, and make a lot of money from that. So they tried to steal the baby Nimai. And Nimai was very happy, sitting on the shoulders, thinking, oh, then these men are taking me for a nice ride. I'm seeing all the country around. I haven't seen the whole village yet. And he's looking around very happy, looking at everything. And then he realizes that his parents are crying in anguish back, looking for him. All the relatives have become very disturbed, not finding Nimai all of a sudden. He was the complete center of attention. So then Nimai, by his mystic potency, he makes the thieves lose their way, and they come right back to the very gate of Nimai. And then the thieves, they realize that they've been discovered because all the relatives are there. So they put the baby down and they run away. And Jagannath Mishra and Satyamata, they're trying to catch the thieves to thank them for bringing their Nimai home. So, huh?
They thought he was lost.
Yeah, they thought he was lost. So, and they thought these 2 thieves had returned him. So this was very beautiful. Then there's also the pastime of when Nimai begins to cry and cry and cry, and he doesn't stop crying on one Ekadashi day. Tomorrow is Ekadashi, by the way. Tomorrow is Ekadashi. So he begins to cry very loudly. And this time, no Harinam will stop his crying. And he's crying and crying, and then Jagannath Mishra, he asks in his way of communicating with Nimai at that time, what is it you're wanting? What is it you want? And finally Nimai says, I want the Mahaprasad that Hiranya and what's the name? Hiranya? Huh? Hiranya Brahma. There's two brothers on the other side of the town. Hiranya and I've forgotten the other one. They had cooked a beautiful offering for the Lord with many grains. And so Jagannath Mishra, he goes all the way across the town to beseech these 2 brothers to give some of their grain Ekadashi to him, because young Nimai is asking for it. And they're so happy to hear this, because of course they're complete Vaishnavas, devotees. It's described that actually Hiranya, in its previous birth, is one of the Brahmani wives, the Yagya Brahmanis of Vrindavan. That's who she was in a previous birth. So they very happily give Jagannath Mishra this grain prasadam and take it back, and immediately Nimai, he stops crying. So this pastime is very beautiful there. And then Nimai, he has so many childhood friends there. He has Gadadhar, Damodar, Jagadish, and Mukunda. These are his childhood friends. So all this is all taking place in the Yog Pit And very close to the yoga pit, after Nimai had grown up and was in his mid-teens, and he's gone to the school of Gangadas. Gangadas's teaching place is very close to the yoga pit. It's been covered by the Ganga since then, though, but that home of Gangadas was there. And Nimai would attend that school with his school friends. But Nimai the scholar, Nimai Pandit we called him. Nimai Pandit was so erudite, he could remember all of these teachings just in a single lesson. And he would argue and debate with all his student friends and defeat them all. So he became the teacher, the leader of all the students when he was about 14, 15. And he would teach them all the grammatical vyakaran, etc. of the Sanskrit. And one day they were all sitting on the bank of the Ganga at this place, Barakona Ghat. And this great Pandit scholar, Keshav Kashmiri, he had defeated everybody in India. And because Mother Saraswati had granted him a benediction that any time he speaks, she will appear on his tongue. Very mystical benediction he'd received, that she would appear and defeat any pundits on any debate. So he had defeated everybody in India. It's called a Digvijay, defeated in all directions. And he came to Navadvip, which was considered the most learned place actually in all of India at that time. Many people would come from Varanasi, etc., to debate with the scholars and pundits of Navadvip. Navadvip was a very high, respected place of learning at that time. And Keshav Kashmiri, he came there wanting to defeat everybody. So he requested, you send your scholars to me and we will have debate. But everyone was terrified of him. He came with elephants, with a whole army of followers, etc. Hundreds of people were following him. And they were all very much afraid to come and debate with this big scholar. But many of the scholars, they were envious of Nimai Pandit's scholarship and erudition. And they were thinking, we should take a dig at him, at Nimai. So they told Keshav Kashmiri, you go and find Nimai Pandit. He's the one that you should debate with. If you defeat him, then we will make an arrangement to have a debate with you. So Keshav Kashmiri, he came to the banks of this Barkona Ghat one evening on sunset. Very beautiful atmosphere was there. And young Nimai was chanting beautiful verses and explaining them to his students there. And Keshav Kashmiri became attracted to the sound vibration of Nimai's voice. And he came there and he sat down amongst the students and was listening to Nimai's voice. But then the students, they knew who he was. And they told Nimai, oh, this is Keshav Kashmiri. This is the great scholar, the Digvijay scholar. He's sitting in our group now. Generous-hearted with him from the very beginning. He called him to sit close to him and said, oh, we've heard so much of your glories. You please tell us the glories of the Ganga, because he had the ability to just have shlokas fly out of his mind and heart in glorification of the holy Dharma, in glorification of so many different places, etc. So Nimai, he requested him, you please chant some glories of the Ganga. So Keshav Kashmiri, just like a whirlwind, produced 100 verses, beautiful verses, glorifying Ganga Devi. And in about 40 minutes, he chanted all these verses without even, just spontaneously. Mother Saraswati was doing all of this. And all the students were astonished. And Nimai was very appreciative and clapping. And then he said, oh, my dear Pandit, can you please explain to us the faults and the attributes of one of the verses? And Keshav Kashmiri became disturbed and wondered, there's no faults in here. All are ornaments. Everything is just beautiful, perfect poetry. There's no fault at all. But Nimai says, think of this verse. And he picked out the very center verse from all those 100 verses and just recited it back perfectly to the Pandit. The Pandit was astonished. He's remembered these 100 verses and even picked out the middle verse that I've said. So the Pandit began to tremble in his heart, realizing this is a very special soul. He could remember all these verses just instantly. So then he described 5 beautiful ornaments of this particular verse. So then Nimai said, if I can please make some comment and also an addition to what you said. Then Nimai described 5 more ornaments of this verse. But then Nimai described 5 defects and faults in the verse. In this verse, actually, Keshav Kashmiri, he's glorifying Bhavani as being the wife of Shivji, from where Ganga Devi has manifested. And he's mentioning her name twice in the verse. And Nimai points this out. This is a fault, because now it sounds like Shivji has 2 wives, but actually we know he only has 1. So he pointed out this fault. And the Pandit Keshav Kashmiri became so overwhelmed with fear and fear of losing his prestige, just completely flattened. Can you imagine the feeling after touring all of India and getting so much acclaim as the big Digvijay? All your elephants are there, all your disciples and followers are there, and you're being smashed by a little boy. So his whole false ego just disintegrated. And he couldn't speak. He couldn't speak anymore. He just looked at Nimai, went completely dumb. And Nimai was trying to say, no, tell more, tell more. And then the students, they began to giggle. They began to laugh at him. And Nimai was very stern. He said, no, don't behave like this. He's a very respected person. Let him keep his respect intact. Then Nimai said, we'll meet again tomorrow. He told that Keshav Kashmiri to go. And that night, Keshav Kashmiri had a dream, and Saraswati appeared in the dream. He was crying out in his prayers, "Oh Saraswati, what have I done to deserve your anger at me, at not supporting me when I was debating with this young boy?" And then Saraswati, she responds, she said, "This is my master. This is my master who I am serving always, my eternal master. And you should be very happy that you've been defeated by him." And then something happened in the heart of Keshav Kashmiri, and he was able to accept this fully. That actually, that Devi Saraswati, or Divya Saraswati, is servant of Vishnu, or servant of Krishna, servant of Narayan. That is her line. So he had been defeated by that very personality of Vishnu, is what he understood in his mind. And then the next morning, he comes straight to Nimai Pandit, and he very submissively surrenders at his feet and offers him all his followers and his wealth and so on and so on. And then Nimai says, the purpose of all knowledge is not to become a proud scholar. The purpose of all knowledge is to glorify and serve the Lord with that knowledge. If you have knowledge, if you have understanding of these things, then use it to glorify the Lord. This is the function of knowledge. This is the purpose of knowledge. And Keshav Kashmiri, he understood. Somehow, by the mercy of Saraswati, he understood that. And he became a true bhakta. And he gave up all his entourage and so on, and just sat down there in Navadvip and began to take that holy name, and became purified from that fault of pride in his scholarship. So this happens at Barakona Ghat. So we're visiting there. We also go to Nagariya Ghat, and this is a very beautiful ghat where Nimai performed many pastimes. He would tell the young girls, if you don't offer me your sandesh and your sweets, you'll get a blind husband with 6 co-wives. And the young girls became afraid, and they would give Nimai their sweets and their sandesh. But some of them, they were not afraid, and they were angry with Nimai, and they would complain to Mother Sachi. And Jagannath Mishra got to hear about this. And then when Nimai would leave them, he'd go into the Ganga, where the Brahmins were saying their Anik, saying their Brahma Gayatri, and he would pull their legs away from them while they were standing in the water. And then if they became angry with him, he'd put water in his mouth and spit on them, spit the water into their mouth, contaminate them completely. Nimai was so naughty, just like Krishna was naughty, really naughty. And then the Brahmins, as a whole group, they went to tell Jagannath Mishra. So young Nimai, he knew what was happening. So then he told all his students who were there playing with him, he said, if my father comes, tell them that I didn't come to the Ganga today. And then he goes home by a different route, puts dust all over his body, puts some ink spots onto his face and cloth and everything, and then just sits there in the house. And Jagannath Mishra comes very, very angry. He's like furious. He has a stick in his hand. He's going to beat his child. And he comes to the Ganga. And the kids all tell him, no, Nimai didn't come here today. So Jagannath Mishra is surprised, and he goes back home. Then he sees Nimai looking like an angel, just sitting with his books, smiling very nicely, all with his dust and ink on his face. And then his heart melts completely, and Jagannath Mishra just drops his stick and walks away, bewildered. So Nimai would perform these activities at this Nagariya Ghat. And also at Nagariya Ghat is where Sachi Mata, she meets Lakshmi Priya, first of all, and then she meets also Vishnu Priya at this Nagariya Ghat. So Nagariya Ghat is there today. And then we come to the house of Srivasangam. All these places, understand, while we're walking through, it's very, sometimes it's not easy to remember the places. We hear the Harikatha, sometimes in 3 different languages, and it's not so easy to catch everything while we're going through. But if we just hear it like this, sort of separate, we can get the strength or the potency of the actual place. So after the Yog Pit, we come to Srivasangam. In Srivasangam is that place of the Kirtan Ras, when the Sankirtan Ras inaugurated itself from there. And this is when Mahaprabhu, he sits on the throne of Vishnu, and it's when Advaita Acharya has darshan of the universal form there in Srivasangam. Srivas himself, of course, is Narada Muni. That's who he is. And Srivas is a very powerful personality. He lives there with his 4 brothers there in that place. And Mahaprabhu would come regularly to perform his kirtan in the courtyard there. And Nityananda Prabhu would live there with Malini, the wife. He would count her like his mother in Srivasangam. And this is also where they performed the Abhishek of Nimai. He was still Nimai at that time. Understand that what has actually happened is that Nimai has gone to Gaya, because his father, after Vishwarup leaves this world, his father becomes so unhappy that his father leaves this world, just like Hadai Pandit's, the father of Nityananda, left this world. When Nityananda goes from Ekachakra, then Hadai Pandit, he just becomes like a stone and fasts until he leaves his body also. So Jagannath Mishra, also like Dasarath, could not tolerate the leaving of Vishwarup, who was so much loved by them. And he leaves this world. So Nimai, he goes to Gaya to perform the Shraddha ceremony there. And there he meets again Ishwarapuri, and he takes initiation from Ishwarapuri. And when he returns from Gaya, he is no longer called Nimai Pandit. He's called Nimai the devotee then. Then he's become Gaura Sundar. Then he's become that beautiful, devoted person. And he's no longer the scholar. And at this time, he comes to Srivasangam and he stays in the house with Srivas Thakur. And he tells, at one point, he tells Nityananda to perform his Vyas Puja ceremony. And Nityananda, he's not doing anything, he's just standing there. And Srivas and the other devotees are trying to encourage Nityananda to place the garland on the picture of Vyasadeva. But he's waiting, and when Mahaprabhu comes, he places the garland on Mahaprabhu, on Nimai. And at that time, everyone appreciates that pastime. I'm just saying these very, very quickly because actually our time is over already. And I just want to give us something of the flavor of these places that we're visiting today in Antardvipa. But the principal point that I wanted to make was that Antardvipa is the very center of all Mahaprabhu's teachings. All is coming from Antardvipa, especially the Yoga Pit. So I've taken time specifically to describe how the Yoga Pit was manifested by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Jagannath Das Babaji confirmed that. So this is what I've tried to principally focus on. And then just up from Srivasangam, there are many, many more pastimes in Srivasangam, but just north of Srivasangam is the Chaitanya Mat. In the Chaitanya Mat is the Samadhi today of Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji. Originally, that Samadhi was on the other side of the river, and it began to flood. Gaurkishore Das Babaji's Samadhi began to flood. And then particularly Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, in 2 boats, he took that Samadhi out and transported it across the Ganga, which must have been so difficult at that time, because the Samadhi is put in a casing. It's a very heavy structure. So 2 boats were actually cabled together so they could bring the whole Samadhi across the Ganga and install him in this Chaitanya Mat. And that's where we have today the Samadhi of Gaurkishore Das Babaji. And of course, the Samadhi of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati reigns supreme there. This beautiful, beautiful Samadhi is there. So this is in the Chaitanya Mat, those 2 Samadhis. And then we go north again from there, and we come to Simantadvipa. And Simantadvipa is got its name from when Parvati is seeing Shivji, who is dancing very vigorously, calling out Gauranga. He's dancing ecstatically. And Parvati, she's witnessing this. Oh, my dear Lord, why are you dancing so ecstatically today? And he says, because I'm remembering the pastimes of Sachinandan Gaura Hari. And she asks, oh, who is this Gauranga Mahaprabhu? And Shivji, he relates the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. So Parvati, she wants to have darshan of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So she performs many austerities here at this place. And Gauranga Mahaprabhu very quickly appears and said, you are my eternal associate. I cannot perform my pastimes without you. You are Durgama, and you're like my Yogamaya potency. You're a part of my Yogamaya potency. Because close by is the place of Vriddha Shiva. That's in the Yoga Pit. The eternal Shivji is there. Today, this Prodamaya is on the other side of the Ganga. But originally they were together, Prodamaya and Vriddha Shiva. So when Parvati is praying to Gauranga Mahaprabhu to please give his mercy to her, Mahaprabhu picks up some dust and plants it in the center of her hair. Simanta. This is why it's called Simantadvipa. This is called Simanta?
Yes.
Yeah, this Simanta.
Simanta.
Srimanta, this is the part, the red Sindhu in the hair, Sindhu. So this is how it's got its name, Simantadvipa. So we walk there also today. We also visit the Chankazi Samadhi. is there. When this Chankazi is described in the Navadvip Mahatmya, the Chankazi is actually like Kamsa in Krishna's pastimes. But in Mahaprabhu's pastimes, he demonstrates his mercy by liberating this Chankazi. We know the whole pastime, how he broke the drum in Shivasangam and told all the devotees, you cannot have this kirtan, ras, and then Mahaprabhu completely defies that ban and tells all the residents to light their torches, and hundreds of thousands of local residents, they all have huge kirtan in the night and they come towards the Chankazi's house. Chankazi is terrified. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, this pastime is described very beautifully, how the residents want to kill the Chankazi. Chankazi is feeling great fear because in the night he's had a dream of Lord Nrsingadev sitting on his chest, scratching his chest, saying that if he tries to obstruct the kirtan of Mahaprabhu, next time he will kill him. So Chankazi has really been terrified already, but then by this huge crowd emerging on his house, he's really afraid. But Mahaprabhu is so gentle, just like he was with Keshav Kashmiri, very gentle with the demons, because that's the nature of Mahaprabhu.
Did Chankazi confess this?
Huh?
Did Chankazi confess this?
Yes, Chankazi, he comes and he speaks with Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu inquires very beautifully, oh, why do you kill your mother, the cows? You know, why are you banning this holy name? And they have a very congenial conversation. So the Chankazi starts to feel a bit relaxed, and he describes this dream that he'd had the previous night to Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu just smiles. And but that Chankazi, it's described in Jayavadama, becomes a greatly devoted personality. And he comes to inquire from the Vaishnavas in the 11th chapter of Jayavadama. He comes and there's a beautiful description of all the Muslim leaders coming to debate the reality of the deity form. How is it you can worship a deity form? So all of these topics were discussed by Nimai and the Chankazi. So the Chankazi, of course, in that close proximity with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes completely purified. So this is a very wonderful pastime that I'm sure you all are very familiar with. But this is described where we will visit today. Also, finally, Sridhar Angam. Kolavecha Sridhar has his place there, close by. He would sell the banana stalks to Nimai, but Nimai would always try to steal them from him. They'd have a beautiful exchange. It was very amusing, beautiful pastime. So that's as much as I'm going to describe today. And I hope you've all got some connection with Antardvipa from this very brief description. This takes 8 or 9 hours to actually go through. I've tried to crush it all together within an hour, basically. And I've spoken quickly. And I've just touched on highlights of the pastimes. But something, if the pastimes are already there in the consciousness, then the hint will wake them up. And we can remember Antardvipa today. So Shri Gauramandal Parikrama ki jai, Antardvipa ki jai, Shri Dham Mayapur ki jai, Mathura ki jai, Gokul ki jai, Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Jagannath Mishra Dev ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Go, Premanandi. Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Go, Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.